every time you go in, I hope nobody notices we're not singing because we can't see the words.
Becky, what's the experience like when you come to the door and it's not open? The outside door to come into the building.
That's an interesting question, Trudy. Because now that I have a new wheelchair, I want to also tell you that I'll be bringing them to the trustees. Those are very simple fix. I can't get over the lip there, and so we're going to have to get a little threshold. And it's very simple, easy. There's a rubber threshold. It's very easy. Apparently, there's a doorbell. And I just want to share my experience with doorbells and the reason that I personally, and I understand why we have it, and I'm glad we have it. It's just going to be me personally and my own personal experience as a person with a disability. I've had so many times in life where something isn't accessible and you have to ring a doorbell. This happened to me, it used to be at a library. And I would be standing out in the rain ringing the doorbell and nobody answered the doorbell. So I'm hopeful that if I have to, if I ring that doorbell, please answer the door. Because it does give me a feeling of vulnerability, that I can't get through the door myself. But that's an interesting point you brought up, because the other wheelchair I had, I could just jump over that threshold. And now I'm like going, uh-oh, I might run over Trudy's foot this morning when I came in, because I had to really rev it. But thank you. And you know, the most important thing, think about this. If I can't get in your building, then I cannot worship with you. I cannot fellowship with you. So your parking lot and your doorway is the most important aspect in the beginning, because I can't even get to you to hear from you.
When I first met Becky, the first fellowship she was at, I said, would you like to join our book club? And she said, well, I would like to, but where do you meet? And I said, well, we meet in people's homes. She goes, well, then I can't go there. I said, well, we'll move the meeting. And she looked at me like startled, like, you would? Of course we would. And I just want to really emphasize, because something Becky has taught me, and I think we all have learned over the years, attitude really is super important. If your attitude is can do, some kind of way. Like we went up to Mission U to do this, and Belinda had rented this house. It was accessible, they said. And it was. You could get into it. And then we went into the accessible bedroom that Becky and I were sharing. And the bed was this high.
Oh my word.
And let me just share. I can stand up and walk a little bit. So Belinda got me a stool, and we made it work. But if Mickey'd been there, I think he'd be reclining in his chair. I don't know. He would not be able to deal with it. And homes are not generally accessible, and so that isolates us. So when we have meetings here at the church, or like they moved the book club, and that was fabulous. I've never been able to be in a book club before, because nobody would ever, I mean, I know you all look at me like, huh? Nobody would ever move where their book club would be. It's amazing. It's like, oh, so now everybody comes to the clubhouse, the Kootenai Village Clubhouse. And we have a great time.
Very nice place to be.
So that's wonderful.
And I was thinking about the can-do attitude, because Belinda just looked at it and went, oh, okay, well, I'm going to get a stool. And off she went to the hardware store. It's that attitude and that can-do ability that's so critical from both sides. Other questions? Claire?
That makes it look easy. Yeah. Thanks to host.
You have such a wonderful attitude. I've been asked a question that I would have liked to have asked of others for years now. I used to work with individuals who are wheelchair bound, many who are blind, a few who are deaf, And over the years, I became super sensitive because if I'd say someone was disabled, I'd run into, I'm not disabled, or handicapped, I'm not handicapped. And I felt like I was walking on eggshells. And I wonder if you could address that too.
Sure.
Because I kind of still do.
Working off that gingerbread.
Okay, what Claire brought up is a really, really interesting point. There is person first language like we were just talking about. And I don't consider myself disabled, and I do not consider myself handicapped. However, I also don't criticize people if they use terms that the disability community does not use. I know that it's not intentional. And person first language always puts my name, because that's who I am, Becky, before the disability. And, you know, handicap is everywhere. They have, out here, the sign is handicap parking, right? So it can be very confusing. And I think a lot of people, like I was saying earlier, Claire, and I hope this answers your question, they don't like to identify it. Or perhaps those individuals were angry. And one of the things I will say too is that I view this chair like the rest of you might view your feet, in a way, okay? I have feet, obviously, but it just gets me from place to place. And if people come up to me in public who I do not know, now, I know all of you, so I'm going to share this. I am a person with cerebral palsy, okay? And a lot of people, strangers will come up to me in public and say, how long have you been in that wheelchair? And I say, let's see, probably since 7:30 this morning. Because I'm not in it all the time. It's just my little vehicle, okay? Think of it as a vehicle. And the other thing is that I now do not correct or criticize strangers in public, nor would I ever criticize one of you, because I know you. And, you know, my attitude is, let's work together. I mean, that is my attitude. Positivity gets us a long way. Positivity gets us a long way. And in churches, if we can't be loving and positive, where else are we going to be? So, that's what, you know, Jesus taught us. So, very good question. Did that answer your question?
I have a question, if you're comfortable answering. You touched upon it when you said something about that sometimes when people see people in a wheelchair or something like that, that they feel the IQ is lower, they assume the people are not quite up there or something?
Yes, that's true. The question was, do people assume when they see a wheelchair user, and by the way, I just use this wheelchair, it ain't me, you know, I don't, I just, like I said, it's my vehicle. And sometimes I can be a speedy driver, so watch out, but anyway. I try not to go too fast, but for some reason, there are perceptions of people with disabilities that we're all like living on welfare, or that we're dirty, that we have lower IQs. You know, I have so many people who come up to me and say, well, aren't you on Medicaid? I mean, I've been in businesses where they say to me, well, we don't serve people on Medicaid here, or we don't serve your kind here. Or I have actually been in restaurants, and this is in 2007 14, because we've only been a couple days in 15, where somebody will say to me, or rather, not me, but the person, the walkie person that's next to me, they may not know they have a disability or not, but, you know, like my mother or somebody, and they'll say, what does she want? Like that, you know, or they act like I'm hard of hearing. They start talking really slow and really loud. Sometimes I like to talk really slow and really loud back to them. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but I will say this. When Nikki and I are together, we have had the experience in a very crowded restaurant, hundreds of people, on a Sunday, a waiter saying, and to the whole room stopped, "Oh my God, there's 2 of you!" And so, you know, anyway, I hope that answers your question. Any other questions? Okay, Hazel and then Lori. And then Carol, you were back there at one point. Carol first.
Okay. Oh, Carol, have the teacher voice.
My situation is, having been a teacher for many years,
Microphone to mouth. That's on film.
okay, this is also happening, I've even seen it happen in our church, where people don't have very much, I don't know if it's compassion, interest, or care, or what, but we have had in the past individual children that have a handicap, or they have a handicap and they do have some other issues. And some people are so kind, it's just awesome. But at the same time, there's other people that think they're dumb, or they're not minding their parents, or why are they up and down? You know, and I think, you know, we're talking mostly adults here, but I think it's really important to get that start in life when you're, and I don't know exactly how to approach people in a positive way. Usually, what I do is I just jump in and get down to their level and start chatting with them. But anyway, that's one thing, because I think we can also not only chase adults, their parents, or the children away from church because they don't feel, you know, kind. But a few years back, I remember when a child, memorized verses for the first time in the Christmas program, and I mean, I was in tears. And I was so excited about how he had done. But I know other people thought that this little guy was, they had no control, people had no control. And it wasn't that at all, it was a learning disability. So, but I don't know if there's other ways that you might think of that we can address that with children.
Sure. And a learning disability is an excellent example of an invisible disability. It's invisible.
Okay, so what Marcia just said, so I'll say it on my room, is learning disability is an excellent example of an invisible disability. And I actually think a lot of times people with cognitive and invisible disabilities have a more difficult time in some ways than those of us with physical disabilities, because people know how to look at me and categorize me. And once I start talking, they don't think that I have a low IQ. I talk a mile a minute anyway. So, but I thought what Carol brought up is a very important point, because I'm going to address it from both the learning disability standpoint and also from a physical disability standpoint. One thing is that we do need to remember that children, and I was once a child, I have both visible and invisible disabilities. I had learning disabilities as a child, and I guess I still do. And it was so difficult I had problems with dyslexia and things like that, so reading and all of those kinds of things. It's difficult to remember that we need to be welcoming to all people, including children. And yes, they may have ADHD, they may have some attention issues, they may have learning disabilities, but that does not mean that they shouldn't be included. And that we can't find ways to include them. And I think you made a very important point. Getting down to their level and talking with them is extremely important. And in fact, as a person with a physical disability, and I sit all the time, one of the things that would be really great, and people used to do for me, is sit down when they talk to me so that we're eye to eye. And I'm not always looking up at them like I'm in, first grade. And they're the adult, because that's part of an attitude thing. So I don't know if that is a good response, but we need to think about that with kids.
Thank you so much, Carol. I appreciated that, because I was in the school system for 21 years. I worked with special ed kids with ADD and ADHD and everything else. In New York, they decided to get rid of everything that had to do with what a child was as far as the mental and disabilities and handicap. They called it challenge. They just said they were challenged, physically challenged and mentally challenged. And they kind of got rid of the word handicap. And it was good. It was good, very good in a way, because it didn't make the student feel like they were unwanted. And their peers were always making fun of them all the time, and they felt equal to the other kids. It's good to be that way.
One quick comment, and then we'll go to Hazel. One of the things Trudy had said to me the other day was that you all did not use the word, one of the places that you worked. You didn't use words like disability or handicap or anything like that. You talked about needs.
Needs accessible.
Needs accessible. And that's a really nice term also. Now, we always have to realize, okay, that the word disability, dis means not. And in the disability community, and I know our time is limited,
We're good.
dis is made small and ability is made big. And if you saw in that awareness survey that's going around, they did that. And that's been done in the community, because what we want to focus on is people's abilities, not their disabilities. Every child has abilities. Every person in here has value and abilities. Every single human being. So, I thought that was a really good point, and thank you, Lorraine. On to Hazel.
As I listen to you, Becky, I think what an amazing mix has brought you to how you present to us today. Wonderful parents. I know your mother just advocated for you and still does fiercely, but you don't need it much anymore. And I think, a great partner and tremendous faith and tremendous desire to do the things people said you couldn't do. And that is rare in our society. I'm thinking about, I guess mine's more a comment, about mental illness. I would say that this church has been relatively welcoming to our women from Genesis House. I would like to see us do better. And what I think of is this, and some of them will say this to me or to their staff. I'd really like to have somebody come up and talk to me. And you may feel like, well, is this person going to be able to talk to me sensibly? I don't know whether they're hallucinating or whatever. I think that you need to go, as you said, with the assumption that they are going to talk to you, just as they are. They do. We've had brilliant people there. We've had college graduates and teachers and architects. And And yes, many of them are medicated pretty heavily, and that makes an impact on their, their movability. And you may see that and think that that's a physical disability or a mental retardation.